Seattle's big one has already started. Not in the way the news reports it, not with headlines and emergency sirens screaming across the city, but it has started. Right now, 3.4 million people are living on top of a fault zone that's literally trembling 900 times a day, and most of them have no idea they're in danger. They're sleeping. They're working. They're drinking coffee in Pike Place Market, while the earth beneath them is moving every 90 seconds. This is the story of how the biggest earthquake in human history is announcing itself one tiny shake at a time, and why 3 million people are ignoring evacuation orders that could save their lives. When we talk about major earthquakes, we usually imagine the big obvious ones, the kind that knock buildings sideways and make the evening news. But the Cascadia Subduction Zone is telling a different story. It's been quiet, too quiet, for more than 300 years. And now, scientists are picking up a signal that most of us are completely missing. A signal in the tremors. A signal in the slowest, most invisible earthquake ever recorded. A signal that says the countdown is real. And it's happening right now, in the city of Seattle, in the state of Washington, in a place where a magnitude 9.0 earthquake isn't just possible. It's inevitable. The only variable is timing. And we've been waiting for 326 years. Every single one of those years, the pressure gets worse. The clock ticks. And the people living in the shadow of this fault don't even know they're watching a countdown in real time. Here's the thing about the Cascadia Subduction Zone that nobody wants to say out loud. It's one of the only places in North America where a true megathrust earthquake, a magnitude 9.0 or higher, can actually happen. Not could happen. Can, will, just not yet, or maybe right now. On January 26th, 1700, a magnitude 8.7 to 9.2 earthquake ruptured along this zone. Imagine 9 minutes of shaking so violent that it displaced the entire sea floor. Entire coastal villages that had stood for thousands of years simply vanished. Forests were submerged underwater. The ground itself moved sideways by several meters. And then it generated a tsunami that crossed the entire Pacific Ocean, traveling at nearly 500 miles per hour across open water, crossing thousands of miles without any warning to the people it was about to hit. Japanese records from that exact day document waves crashing on their coast with no warning, no earthquake felt on land, just waves that came out of nowhere. That's how scientists knew, 300 years later, exactly what day the Cascadia event happened. The tsunami itself told the story. That's what a magnitude 9.0 looks like when it happens under the Pacific Northwest. That earthquake was 326 years ago. The average return time between major Cascadia earthquakes, based on geological evidence spanning 3,500 years, is somewhere between 200 and 900 years. Sometimes they come every 200 years. Sometimes they wait for 900 years. We're currently 326 years into that cycle, which means we're overdue. By how much depends on where the last event falls in that range. And here's where it gets truly insane. We don't know if we're 1 year away or 50 years away. We just know the odds are getting worse every single day we're still here. The U.S. Geological Survey put it this way. There's a 37% chance of a magnitude 8.2 or higher Cascadia earthquake within the next 50 years. 37%. Within half a century. For comparison, that's roughly the odds of rolling a pair of dice and getting doubles. And that's just the minimum threshold. The actual chance of a full magnitude 9.0 rupture is somewhere between 10 and 15% in the same time frame. Don't let that lower number fool you. A 15% chance of the deadliest natural disaster in American history is not a small thing to ignore. But that's not the real countdown. The real countdown is happening right now, in the tremors that started showing up around 2005, in the micro-earthquakes that scientists call episodic tremor and slip, or ETS. These are slow slip events where the Juan de Fuca plate, the oceanic plate diving beneath North America at a rate of about 1.5 inches per year, releases stress through tremor and movement, not through a sudden rupture. When an ETS event happens, that zone generates thousands of tiny earthquakes, small ones, barely detectable unless you're listening with sensitive seismometers buried in the ground. But they all add up. All those micro-quakes together equal something like a magnitude 7.0 earthquake in total energy released. Completely silent, completely invisible to most people, but happening every 14 months like clockwork, maybe more often now. And here's the crucial part. Each time an ETS event happens, it releases some stress from the deeper portion of the fault, but not from the shallower sections. Those shallow sections stay locked, and every single time the fault slips below, stress transfers upward to those locked sections. That's how you load a megathrust. That's how you build pressure for something catastrophic. Those 900 daily microquakes we mentioned at the start, that's not hyperbole. That's not speculation. That's direct observation from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, which monitors the region with dozens of sensitive seismometers. During an active ETS event in the Cascadia Subduction Zone, scientists have documented swarms of literally thousands of these tiny tremors happening in coordinated bursts, all the way from the coast of Northern California up to British Columbia. The pattern is eerily consistent. They happen 30 kilometers below the surface, deep in the subduction zone where the pressure is literally immense. The pressure is so great, millions of tons of rock pressing down, that when this zone ruptures, when it finally releases all that built-up energy, it will displace the seafloor by several meters at once. Suddenly, all in a matter of minutes. The water column above will shift. The entire Pacific will feel it. And a tsunami will begin its race toward the coasts of Washington, Oregon, and California. It will also race across the Pacific to Asia. The last time this happened, in 1700, that tsunami reached Japan in about 9 hours. This time, it'll hit Hawaii in about an hour. The Pacific Northwest coast, maybe 15 minutes. 15 minutes for 3.4 million people to get to high ground or face obliteration. But Seattle doesn't face just the Cascadia threat from offshore. It faces another one. Directly underneath the city, running beneath neighborhoods, running beneath downtown, running beneath homes where families are sleeping right now, runs the Seattle Fault. Not a subduction zone. A different kind of fault entirely. A strike-slip fault that cuts right across the Puget Sound. This fault runs from southwest of Tacoma all the way through Seattle and up toward the San Juan Islands. It's not offshore and theoretical. It's literally under the buildings where 800,000 people live and work. This fault last ruptured about 1,100 years ago. Scientists have narrowed it down to a specific 6-month window between 923 CE and 924 CE. They did this by studying trees killed by the earthquake and using a technique called dendrochronology, counting tree rings to find the exact year the trees died. When that fault ruptured, the force was so immense that it lifted the southern end of Bainbridge Island more than 20 feet into the air. More than 20 feet. Imagine waking up to find your neighborhood suddenly elevated 2 stories higher than it was yesterday. It generated its own tsunami in Puget Sound that made waves several meters high. It triggered landslides on steep hillsides that changed the landscape permanently. And the magnitude was somewhere between 7.0 and 7.8. Maybe even 7.8. Let that number sit for a moment. A magnitude 7.8 earthquake directly underneath a major metropolitan area with no warning, no time to evacuate, no time to hide, no time at all. 365 days a year. 3.4 million people wake up and go about their lives in the greater Seattle metropolitan area. They commute on highways. They work in downtown offices. They live in neighborhoods built on steep hillsides and low-lying valleys. They send their kids to schools and daycare. They're completely unaware that the ground beneath them hasn't ruptured in 12 centuries. Completely unaware that the Seattle Fault runs directly under their homes and offices. Completely unaware that the average return time for ruptures on the Seattle Fault is somewhere between 500 and 1,500 years, and we're now 1,200 years into that cycle. The odds are being reset constantly. Every year that passes, the earthquake becomes statistically more likely to happen, and they're not alone in this ignorance. In fact, most of the population do what most populations do when faced with a disaster that seems too big to think about. They ignore it. It's a psychological defense mechanism. If something catastrophic hasn't happened in living memory, the human brain categorizes it as impossible, even when every piece of scientific evidence says otherwise. Even when the fault is literally moving right underneath your feet. Emergency management agencies in Washington state have evacuation plans for Cascadia. They have tsunami inundation maps showing exactly which neighborhoods would be inundated with water. They have designated safe zones and emergency shelter locations. They have officially recommended that people at all income levels prepare themselves for a serious earthquake with water, food, medical kits, and communication devices. They have created public evacuation orders and community alert systems, and they have trained first responders and emergency personnel. But the evacuation orders are being largely ignored. Most people don't know what zone they're in. Most don't know where to go. Most haven't filled a single water jug. Here's the infrastructure that's sitting in the bullseye. About 1,100 unreinforced masonry buildings scattered across Seattle. These aren't small structures. These aren't abandoned warehouses in forgotten corners of the city. They're downtown office buildings, historic storefronts, and apartments. Residential buildings where real people with real lives are living and working right now. A single building might house hundreds of residents. An unreinforced masonry building is basically exactly what it sounds like. A structure made of brick and stone, held together by mortar, with no steel framework inside to hold it all together when the ground starts moving sideways. When an earthquake happens, the walls move independently from the floor. The connections between walls and floors fail. The heavy bricks cascade down to the streets below. Pedestrians and cars get crushed. People inside get trapped in collapsing structures. When the 2001 Nisqually earthquake hit, a 6.8 magnitude quake, not even close to the big one, it caused significant damage to these exact buildings across Seattle. Bricks fell from facades. Parapets collapsed. Multiple injuries. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. That was a 6.8 quake. A magnitude 7.0 to 7.8 Seattle Fault earthquake would turn these buildings into coffins. Think about that. More than 1,000 death traps scattered throughout the city. And the city has only just started, in 2024, to even recognize and track which buildings have been retrofitted to be safer. The rest are still there, looking solid, waiting. The Duwamish Industrial Valley, the neighborhoods of Sodo and Inner Bay, the entire area around King County International Airport, all of it sits on top of what's called liquefiable soil. This is fill. This is dirt and sediment that was dredged up and dumped into wetlands and bays during Seattle's early 20th century expansion. It gets saturated with water. The water fills all the spaces between the soil particles. When an earthquake starts, it shakes this fill violently. The shaking rearranges the soil particles. They lose contact with each other, and the soil loses its strength. It literally liquefies. It behaves like a liquid. Roads buckle. Pipelines rupture. Buildings that were sitting on solid ground suddenly find themselves sinking into mud. They tilt. They crack. The foundation fails. Infrastructure that looked solid simply collapses. 70% of the study sites in the Duwamish district have a probability greater than 60% of experiencing liquefaction in a Seattle Fault earthquake scenario. 70%. That's not a margin of error. That's a collapse waiting to happen. Some sites in Interbay show even higher probabilities. 62% of study areas predicted to liquefy. That's 2 out of every 3 square blocks in that neighborhood just turning to mud during an earthquake. If that blew your mind, every subscriber is automatically entered in our monthly giveaway for a branded Micro-Quakes hoodie. Details in the description: the hospitals, the fire stations, the police departments, the water treatment plants, the power substations, the places we run to when disaster happens. A significant number of them sit either on liquefiable soils or in the shadow of unreinforced masonry buildings. Harborview Medical Center, one of the region's premier trauma centers, sits in an area vulnerable to liquefaction and strong shaking. Imagine losing your primary trauma center in the exact moment you need it most. One comprehensive research paper looked specifically at the Duwamish district and found that liquefaction could sever major transportation corridors, trapping people and emergency responders in isolated pockets of the city. Interstate 5, the main north-south highway, runs through or right next to liquefaction zones. State Route 99, another major thoroughfare, does the same. The West Seattle Bridge, the First Avenue South Bridge, the approaches to the I-90 bridge that connects Seattle to the east side. All of them run through or near the liquefaction zones. A magnitude 7 to 7.8 Seattle fault earthquake would cut the city in half. It would strand people on isolated peninsulas with no way to get help. It would make rescue and recovery exponentially harder. It would trap people in neighborhoods where fires are spreading and there's no way to escape. And the fires would be catastrophic. Ruptured gas lines, no water pressure to fight them. They would spread unchecked through wooden frame neighborhoods. They would consume blocks and blocks of the city. When a major Cascadia event happens, not if, when, FEMA projections for a magnitude 9.0 event estimate somewhere around 13,000 deaths across the entire region. Just deaths, not injuries. Another 27,000 injured. 1 million people displaced from their homes immediately. And that's on the conservative end of the estimate, assuming people have time to take shelter. If the earthquake hits during a wet season workday afternoon, when more people are at work, when people are outside, when they're commuting, the numbers spike dramatically. The number of injured alone could spike to nearly 30,000 just in the immediate impact zone. Add in injuries from the tsunami, from fires triggered by ruptured gas lines, from hazardous materials being released, from building collapses, and you're looking at potential casualty counts that approach or exceed the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. 1 million people needing shelter. Tents? There aren't enough tents on the West Coast. Sleeping bags? Schools and gymnasiums become overcrowded camps. 2.5 million needing food and water in the immediate aftermath. That's enough water to submerge the entire island of Manhattan under 3 feet of liquid every single day for weeks. Where does that water come from when treatment plants are offline? Infrastructure destroyed, supply lines severed. Trucks can't reach Seattle if the roads are torn apart. This would be the deadliest natural disaster in American history by an enormous margin. And it would unfold live on social media while we all watched in real time. No backup power for hospitals. Ventilators don't work without power. Dialysis machines don't work without power. Neonatal intensive care units go dark. No water pressure for firefighting. Fires would burn unchecked in neighborhoods built on fill. No cell towers for emergency calls. The towers would be damaged and power substations would be offline. Just chaos, darkness, and the weight of a continent realizing it wasn't prepared. And yet, evacuation compliance remains low. Studies show that most people in the Seattle area don't have a formal evacuation plan. Most don't have emergency kits. Most haven't discussed with their families what they'd do or where they'd go. Most have never even thought about where the high ground is in their neighborhood. People see the maps. They understand the threat in abstract terms, but ask them to actually prepare, to stock water, to create a family evacuation plan, to know where the high ground is, to know how they'd meet up with family if cell service is down, and most of them don't. It's not stupidity. It's not irresponsibility. It's a psychological phenomenon that disaster planners call the normalcy bias. If something catastrophic hasn't happened in recent memory, the human brain treats it as if it won't happen at all. It's a survival mechanism that worked fine when threats were immediate and visible, but it completely fails when the threat is rare, catastrophic, and invisible until it arrives, even when the numbers prove otherwise, even when the fault is literally moving right underneath your feet. The Seattle metropolitan area experiences around an 86% chance of a damaging earthquake in the next 50 years. 86%. That's higher odds than a coin flip. That's almost a certainty. That's more probable than getting heads or tails on a coin. And most people are acting like it's a maybe, like it's something that could happen to someone else, somewhere else, at a different time. The science is absolutely clear. The Cascadia Subduction Zone is fully loaded with stress. It has released energy through small ETS events in 2005, 2009, 2012, 2014, 2017, 2020, and most recently in 2023. That's a pattern. That's a rhythm. That's a fault system saying, with every tremor and every micro-quake, I'm under pressure, and I'm building toward a release. Each ETS event releases some stress from the deeper portions of the subduction zone, but it doesn't release all the stress. The megathrust itself, the shallow part of the subduction zone where the two plates meet, stays locked. It stays clamped. And every single day it stays locked, the pressure increases. The stress accumulates. The elastic energy builds. The fault gets more dangerous. The clock keeps ticking. We could get another 50 years of relative quiet. We could get another 500 years of waiting. Or we could get the big one at 2 a.m. on a random Tuesday in March, or at 2 p.m. on a Friday during rush hour, or at 3 a.m. on a Monday morning when everyone is asleep. The science cannot tell us which. The science can only tell us that it will eventually happen. The only uncertainty is when. But here's what the science does tell us. When that earthquake comes, and it will come, the people who prepared will have a chance. They will have an advantage. They will know where to go. They will have water and food stored. They will have an emergency kit with a flashlight and a battery-powered radio and first aid supplies. They will have a family communication plan. They will have thought through the scenarios. They will know not to run outside during the shaking, not to try to drive, not to assume that buildings are safe just because they look solid. They will know that the first waves of the tsunami could reach the Washington coast in 15 minutes. 15 minutes from the initial rupture to having water wash away your entire community. There is no time for evacuation orders in tsunami events. There is only time for preparation. Either you are on high ground already, or you are not going to make it. Either you know that, or you learn it in the last 15 minutes of your life. This is the unspoken reality of living in Seattle in 2026. We are living inside a waiting period. Not a short one, but not an infinite one either. The pressures are building. The tremors are happening. The evidence is mounting. And while 3.4 million people go about their daily lives in blissful ignorance, the ground beneath them is moving 900 times a day, sometimes more during ETS events. Moving, shifting, waiting, accumulating energy, counting down to a day that could change everything. The next Cascadia event, the next Seattle fault rupture. It is coming. It is not a question of if. It is a question of when. And the closer we get to that moment, the more critical it becomes to be ready. The tremors don't stop. The pressure doesn't ease. And the people who ignore these warnings will learn in the worst possible way why they should have listened. The question is not if the big one is coming. The question is whether you will be ready when it does. And if stories like this remind you that the unexpected can arrive without warning, that the ground beneath your feet is not as stable as you have always believed, grab your free disaster preparedness toolkit. The link is in the description. You have the information, you have the time, you have the choice. What you do with it is up to you. The tremors continue. The pressure builds. The countdown goes on. Do not wait until it is too late.